Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Crazy Tech Reviews. In today's episode, we are going to be finally fixing this Macintosh Classic. Hopefully. So as I mentioned in the last video, we're going to be recapping this Macintosh today. So basically I have the caps coming. However, since these Macs use SMT electrolytic caps, I'm going to probably have to practice first because I've never actually done any work on those types of caps before. So anyway, this video is mainly going to be me learning how to recap surface mount SMT electrolytic caps so I don't screw this machine up. And then after that, we're going to be actually recapping this Macintosh logic and analog board. So anyway, let's get right into this video. Alright, so I decided I would start off by practicing on this NVIDIA GeForce card here. I have two of these, so if I break a cap or anything, I can just put a new one on from the other one I have. It's a parts board. Anyway, this has the exact same style of electrolytic SMT caps on it that the Macintosh logic board does, so this will be what I use to practice removing a cap from it. Anyway, I'm going to start by trying to desolder it on this board. I'm not going to try mechanical removal on this specific board because I don't want to risk damaging anything too bad. Anyway, I had terrible luck removing these caps, and these are big compared to the ones on the Mac board, so I eventually just gave up on this and pulled out the parts board and decided I would try to remove one of the caps so it's more similarly sized to the Mac ones with mechanical removal. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a pair of pliers and I'm rocking the cap back and forth, or backward, or side to side very lightly, and sure enough, after a few seconds of doing so, the cap just came right off with no pads. The Epic Guy did a really good video on this a few years back or so, that will be in a link in the description of this video, just to check out for yourself, I guess. And then after that, I went ahead and cleaned off the pads with my soldering iron. As far as removing the electrolytic caps, how I do it is just by putting a bit more solder on the pads and then simply heating one leg up at a time while I sort of pull it out a little bit and then sort of going back and forth between the legs until the cap comes out, and then coming back with some solder wick and cleaning the pads. You can also use solder wick to remove the caps as well. Alright, so the caps showed up today, so I guess we'll go ahead and open them up. Just go ahead and cut into the package. And here they are. Oh, that's cute. They included a little candy in there as well. Yeah, that's pretty cute, actually. Alright, so with that, I'll go ahead and take off the back case and then begin to unscrew and remove the analog board. Go ahead and disconnect the yoke connector, and then once you get that disconnected, I'll go ahead and disconnect the anode cap or cup. And I did already discharge the tube, by the way, just for anybody who's wondering. And then I'll go ahead and remove the analog board now that all the cables are disconnected. And next I'll begin to remove the logic board, and there are the two boards. Alright, so just by looking at the board, you can see it's covered in electrolyte from all those caps. I'm definitely glad I decided to recap the board. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and empty all these caps out and sit them on the table so that they're easier to access when I need them. And then after that, I will go ahead and remove the protective plastic thing that keeps you from shocking yourself to death when you're working inside the machine. I'm going to start by replacing these two caps since they're really big and easy to access. So with that, I'll go ahead and flip the board over, and then I'll go ahead and start adding some solder to the joints just to make it easier to remove, and then I'll grab the solder sucker and suck the solder out. And then just by heating up the other one, the leg just fell right through and the cap came out, so that's good, I guess. Didn't even have to use the solder sucker on that leg. As you can see, this is a 220 microfarad 250 volt cap, so with that, I'll go ahead and find a replacement, and sure enough, you can see the new 220 microfarad 250 volt cap right next to it. Anyway, looking at the solder pad, or the pad here where the capacitor would go, you can see it doesn't have any electrolyte, but one thing to keep in mind is capacitors do have polarity. They're usually marked with the negative side, and this board happens to be marked with the positive side, so when you are inserting the cap, you want to make sure you get the polarity lined up correctly, or else it can possibly blow, and that's not good. I'm also going to spread out the leads so that I can solder it without it falling back through, and then I'll go ahead and just put some new solder on the pads to solder the cap down, and we'll go ahead and do the other one, and after that, the capacitor should be good to go. And here's the finished cap. Anyway, next up I decided I'd mark out all the non-replaced caps just so that I could keep the confusion level low and make sure I don't accidentally replace something I already replaced with the original cap. But anyway, yeah, I went ahead and marked all the ones I hadn't replaced, and then I began to remove and replace the other capacitor next to the one I just replaced earlier in the video. And well, that's a to the new capacitor, and here you can see the 2 old capacitors. Anyway, with that said, I continue to work on recapping the board. As you can see here, I'll just go ahead and put some new solder in this cap. This didn't take a long time, though, to recap. It took like a few hours. Anyway, though, with that said, it's time to move on to recapping the logic board. Now, the logic board has these stupid little SMT electrolytic caps. They're super hard to remove and replace. Now, I will admit the method I'm using isn't the best for recapping this board, but I don't have a rework station as of now, so I don't really have any other choice. Essentially, what I'm doing is, as I showed earlier in the video, rocking the capacitors back and forth in order to cause metal fatigue and break them loose. And as you can see, here comes the cap right off the board, just like that. And the pads aren't damaged either, although sorry for the low quality footage there. So with that said, we'll continue to recap the rest of the, or remove the rest of the caps from the board. And as you can see, all the power caps have been removed, so we'll go ahead and remove the rest. And here's what the board looks like without the caps on it. And as you can see, no pads were damaged. And here are the capacitors after being removed from the motherboard. Next, after removing the capacitors from the board, I began to remove the legs of the caps that did not come off from the solder pads. Now, this is fairly difficult because the solder that was put on these boards 20 years ago to hold these capacitors down has corroded, and it's very hard to remove now, so I ended up having to apply some fresh solder. And then I went back with some solder wick and removed most of that solder so that I could get the pin off, or the leg off. And then I went ahead and cleaned up the rest of the board, or the rest of the contact with some solder wick just to make it clean. And now it's time to install the new surface mount capacitors, which I will just say was a pain in the rear. These little things are super hard to install, and I ended up having to get help from my dad to install them because I just did not want to screw the thing up. And here's the finished result. As you can see, it's not the best, but it sure works. Now remember that area in the board where all those leaky caps were? Well, it turns out it looks even worse without the caps even there. You can clearly see all this green electrolyte that had leaked out of those things. It was just nasty. So anyway, that said, I'm just going to have to clean that entire area up very thoroughly with some isopropyl alcohol. And I will say for sure, this stuff cleans it really well. You can see just how quickly it removes all that electrolyte there from the board surface. And with that all gone, we'll go ahead and reinstall the new caps there. Or install the new caps there, I mean. And also some seep through the board, so I'd have to clean up the bottom of the board too before soldering anything. And then we'll go ahead and solder on those new caps. And finally, we'll go ahead and clip the legs off the caps, since I've made sure that they are in the correct orientation. And here is the analog board, fully recapped and ready to go back into the machine. As you can see, this is the area where all that electrolyte was leaking out, and it looks pretty nice now. As you can see, it's completely clear where all the electrolyte is. And also, for those of you who are wondering what all those green marks are on top of the caps, that's just me marking them to let me know that they're in the correct spots, and that they're the correct orientation as well. And here are those two big capacitors that I installed at the beginning of the video. As you can see, they turned out really nice as well. Here's the logic board, and as you can see, it also looks really nice and clean. So anyway, with that, I went ahead and proceeded to anxiously reassemble the machine, hoping that it would work. we'll go ahead and put on the yoke board, and then slide in the logic board. And we still got the exact same, if not even worse result, because we now have the weird wavy line effect there. And we still have low voltage. And unfortunately, no matter what I tried to get this computer working, just ended up failing. Heck, I even tried doing a deflection coil swap on the CRT to try to get rid of that wavy pattern that you were seeing that wasn't there before. But even that failed to change anything on the machine. Now, there is a very good chance that I still might have put on a cap backwards or done something wrong, but I haven't gone back and checked yet because I've been so busy with other things. But unfortunately, I think that's where we're going to have to conclude this episode for now until I can get that system working. Which hopefully will be soon, because I do actually have several episodes planned on that. For example, I am planning one on the program called HyperCard, which was a software development kit sort of thing for the Macintosh that I want to cover because it's a very interesting and unique program. However, unfortunately, yeah, we're probably not going to get that machine working in this episode or terribly soon. However, one thing I want to tell you guys real quick is I will be a guest on the video podcast called Mac and Chat. There will be a link to some of their previous podcasts down in the description, but I will be on that show this upcoming Saturday, the 6th of June, I think it is. It will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so please drop by and check it out. I will be on there. And with that said, that's all for me in this video, and I'll see you guys all next time.